Something extraordinary happened on the battlefield last week that will leave you speechless. Intelligence reports revealed a critical situation developing behind enemy lines that threatened our entire Western offensive. What our reconnaissance drones captured was so alarming that High Command immediately classified the information. The enemy had established a sophisticated electronic warfare station capable of disrupting our military communications across a 50-mile radius. Can you imagine the catastrophic consequences if our frontline troops suddenly lost contact with command during the planned assault? Thousands of our soldiers would have been walking into a deadly trap with no way to coordinate their movements or call for support. I still remember the moment when the urgent transmission came through our secure channel. The images showed what appeared to be an abandoned farmhouse, but thermal imaging revealed intense electronic activity inside. This wasn't just any enemy outpost. This was potentially the most advanced electronic warfare center we'd encountered in this conflict. Our analysts worked tirelessly to assess the threat level, and their conclusion was alarming. If this station remained operational for just 24 more hours, our entire Western offensive would collapse. High Command needed to act fast, but conventional airstrikes were too risky due to the proximity of civilian settlements. What happened next reveals the incredible bravery of our special operations teams. With time running out and conventional options exhausted, Command made the difficult decision to deploy a small infiltration team. This wasn't part of any standard playbook. This was a desperate measure for a desperate situation. The team selected for this mission consisted of just two operators, Jason, a 35-year-old former telecommunications specialist, and Mike, a 32-year-old electronics expert. These men weren't just selected for their technical expertise, but for their proven ability to function under extreme pressure in hostile territory. You won't believe the odds these men faced. Intelligence estimated at least 30 enemy soldiers guarding the facility, armed with the latest detection equipment and thermal sensors. Any conventional approach would trigger immediate alarms, and the enemy would simply destroy the equipment before we could capture it. The mission was deemed low probability of success by analysts, yet these brave men volunteered without hesitation. Their insertion would need to happen during a brief 3-hour window when enemy drone surveillance was scheduled for maintenance, giving them their only chance to approach undetected. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If Jason and Mike failed, not only would they likely lose their lives, but our entire Western offensive involving over 5,000 troops would be compromised. The potential casualties were unthinkable. What's truly shocking is that this critical mission received almost no coverage in official reports. While the public focused on the main battle lines, these two men were preparing to silently venture deep behind enemy lines on a mission that would determine whether thousands of their brothers in arms would live or die the following day. The clock was ticking as Jason and Mike began their preparation for what might be their final mission. They had just 6 hours to study satellite imagery, memorize approach routes, and familiarize themselves with the target facility's suspected layout. What makes their story even more remarkable is how each man brought complementary skills that would prove essential for success. Jason, always calm and methodical, had an uncanny ability to navigate through hostile territory unseen. His previous life as a telecommunications engineer gave him intimate knowledge of the systems they would need to disable. Mike, more energetic and quick-thinking, was a natural problem solver who could improvise solutions under pressure. What you're about to learn shows just how meticulous their planning had to be. Every piece of equipment was carefully selected to minimize weight while maximizing effectiveness. They would carry specialized electronic jamming devices designed to temporarily blind enemy sensors without alerting them to the intrusion. Their weapons were chosen for reliability and silence, suppressed sidearms and carbon fiber combat knives that wouldn't trigger metal detectors. Most crucially, they carried a specialized EMP device that could neutralize the enemy's electronic warfare systems without destroying valuable intelligence data stored within. The insertion plan revealed the true danger of their mission. They would be dropped 3 miles from the target during the darkest hour of night, navigating through various enemy checkpoints using advanced stealth techniques. There would be no direct communication with headquarters once they crossed enemy lines. Complete radio silence was essential to avoid detection. If compromised, they had strict orders to prioritize the mission over their own survival. The brutal reality? Command calculated that destroying the enemy facility was worth sacrificing these men if necessary. Behind the scenes, intelligence officers were working frantically to give Jason and Mike every possible advantage. Weather forecasts were analyzed to ensure optimal conditions for their night infiltration. Enemy patrol schedules were studied to identify patterns and gaps in security. What's truly shocking is what they discovered just hours before deployment. The enemy had unexpectedly doubled their security forces at the facility. Someone had tipped them off that an operation might be imminent. This devastating news wasn't shared with Jason and Mike to avoid affecting their resolve, but it reduced their estimated survival chances from 40% to under 20%. Few people know about the personal sacrifices these men made before departing. Jason had a 5-month-old daughter he had only seen twice since her birth. Mike had recently proposed to his girlfriend of 3 years, with their wedding planned for the coming spring. Neither man spoke much about their personal lives, but their commanding officer later revealed that both had recorded final messages for their families before departure. As they boarded the stealth helicopter under the cover of darkness, they exchanged a simple nod. No dramatic speeches or promises to return alive. They understood perfectly well that this mission might require the ultimate sacrifice. The infiltration began at precisely 200 hours under a moonless sky, conditions that would normally favor our operators but also conceal any enemy movement. As the stealth helicopter hovered just 6 feet above the drop zone, Jason and Mike slipped into enemy territory like shadows. What happened in the next few hours would later be described by military analysts as one of the most daring infiltrations in modern warfare. The men moved through the terrain with extraordinary precision, using natural features and abandoned structures to mask their approach. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate, as they navigated through an area saturated with enemy patrols. You won't believe how close they came to disaster just 30 minutes into their mission. An unexpected enemy patrol with tracking dogs appeared directly in their path, forcing them to submerge in a freezing drainage ditch for nearly 20 minutes. The water temperature was below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, risking hypothermia, but they remained perfectly still as the patrol passed just 15 feet from their position. Their specialized training in controlled breathing techniques prevented even the slightest betrayal of their position. This close call would be just the first of many, revealing how the enemy's security was far more extensive than intelligence had indicated. The most remarkable aspect of their approach was how they used the enemy's technology against them. Jason had identified a pattern in the enemy's electronic sensor grid, a 3-second blind spot during automated system resets that occurred every 15 minutes. Exploiting this vulnerability required split-second timing and perfect coordination. Mike later described how they would freeze completely, then cover critical distance in short, precisely timed bursts during these brief windows. What should have been an 8-hour approach was compressed into just under 4 hours through this innovative technique, bringing them to the facility perimeter well ahead of schedule. The discovery they made upon reaching their destination changed everything about the mission. The facility wasn't just a communications jamming station, as originally believed. It was something far more sinister. Through high-powered thermal scopes, they observed what appeared to be a chemical weapons preparation area adjacent to the electronic warfare systems. This shocking development wasn't in any intelligence briefing, presenting Jason and Mike with an agonizing decision. Their orders were specific to the electronic systems, but the chemical weapons posed an immediate threat to thousands of civilians in nearby territories. With no way to contact command for updated instructions, they would have to make this moral calculation themselves. What happened next demonstrates why these operators were selected for this mission. Instead of hesitating or abandoning the increasingly complicated operation, they quickly adapted their plan. Mike improvised a secondary approach to the chemical facility, while Jason continued toward the primary electronic warfare target. This split-second decision to separate, despite going against all standard operating procedures for two-man teams, revealed their extraordinary courage and initiative. As dawn approached, bringing with it increased enemy activity and drastically higher risk of detection, both men were now in position to strike at their respective targets, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of thousands. The operation itself began at precisely 05:47 hours, timed perfectly to coincide with the shift change among the enemy guards. What Jason witnessed through his observation position left him momentarily stunned. The electronic warfare facility was far more advanced than anyone had anticipated. Massive arrays of signal jammers, directional EMP generators, and what appeared to be prototype communication interception systems were all being prepared for immediate deployment. This wasn't just preparation for defense. This was the staging area for an offensive electronic attack that would have paralyzed our entire command structure within hours. The enemy wasn't just planning to disrupt our attack, they were preparing to launch one of their own. The most critical moment came when Jason infiltrated the main control room. Using specialized tools, he bypassed the security locks without triggering alarms, only to discover 3 enemy technicians working through the night shift. What happened next has been classified in official reports, but sources close to the operation revealed that Jason subdued all 3 men without firing a single shot, using non-lethal techniques that left no trace of his presence. Instead of simply destroying the equipment as ordered, he made an extraordinary decision that would later be credited with saving countless lives. He reconfigured the systems to broadcast false coordinates that would misdirect enemy artillery away from our advancing forces, turning their own technology against them. Meanwhile, Mike's discovery at the chemical facility revealed something even more disturbing than anticipated. The enemy wasn't just manufacturing standard chemical agents. They were preparing a newly developed neurological agent that would leave no trace in detection systems. Through remarkable presence of mind, Mike placed specialized sensors that transmitted critical data about this new weapon back to our chemical defense units. What's truly astonishing is how he neutralized the production facility without causing a catastrophic release. Using his background in chemical engineering, he precisely targeted the precursor storage rather than the agents themselves, rendering the entire production process unusable without releasing toxic compounds. You won't believe the complexity of their extraction plan. Rather than retracing their entry route, which would now be compromised by increased enemy activity, they implemented what military strategists call a chaos extraction. Jason rigged the electronic systems with delayed malfunction protocols that would appear as system failures rather than sabotage. This created a window of confusion during which both men could exit through the facility's main service tunnels. The audacity of this approach is breathtaking. They would walk directly past enemy personnel who would be too distracted by the cascading system failures to notice them. This technique required absolute confidence and perfect execution under extreme pressure. What happened in the next 20 minutes demonstrates why this operation has become legendary among Special Forces communities. As the extraction began, an unexpected complication arose. An enemy general arrived for an unscheduled inspection, bringing with him an elite security detail. Suddenly, every exit was being monitored with tripled security. Jason and Mike, now reunited and moving through maintenance corridors, were effectively trapped inside the facility. With remarkable composure, they implemented Contingency Plan Delta, a diversionary tactic so risky that it's rarely approved for field operations. They intentionally triggered a peripheral alarm on the opposite side of the compound, drawing security forces away from their actual position just long enough to slip past the remaining guards. The escape phase proved even more dangerous than the infiltration. As dawn broke, enemy forces realized something was wrong with their communication systems, triggering a full security alert across the region. What Jason and Mike faced was nothing short of a gauntlet. Every road, path, and potential extraction route was now swarming with enemy patrols. The original extraction plan involved meeting a specialized recovery team at a designated location 6 miles from the facility. but reaching this point now seemed nearly impossible. With enemy drones scanning the area and helicopter patrols crisscrossing the landscape, they were forced to employ extreme evasion techniques that pushed the limits of human endurance. Something truly remarkable happened as they navigated through enemy territory. Rather than avoiding all contact, they made the bold decision to temporarily disguise themselves as maintenance workers from the facility. Using identification badges taken during the operation, they actually walked directly through an enemy checkpoint, explaining they were investigating a power anomaly in a nearby substation. This level of psychological operation requires extraordinary composure. The slightest hesitation or inconsistency would have meant immediate capture. Military psychologists later studied this tactic as a perfect example of high-risk improvisation under extreme pressure, noting that few operators in the world could successfully execute such a maneuver. The most intense moment came when they reached the extraction point, only to discover it had been compromised. Enemy forces had somehow anticipated this location and established a concealed ambush position. What you're about to learn shows the true brilliance of these operators. Instead of panicking or attempting to fight through the ambush, they implemented an obscure contingency protocol called Ghost Mirror, deliberately exposing themselves at extreme distance to be spotted by the enemy, then disappearing into prepared hide positions. This caused the enemy to believe they were moving in one direction while actually traveling in another, effectively turning the hunters into the hunted. You won't believe what happened during hour 14 of their escape. As they crossed through a ravine that intelligence had marked as minimal risk, they encountered an enemy forward operating base that wasn't on any intelligence maps. Dozens of enemy soldiers with vehicles and air support were establishing a new position directly in their path. With no way around and their extraction window closing, Jason made an extraordinary decision that defied conventional tactics. They didn't retreat or attempt to hide. Instead, they moved forward, using the natural cover of the ravine to approach within 50 meters of the enemy position. From there, they precisely observed and documented this new threat, gathering intelligence that would prove invaluable to our main offensive. The final phase of their extraction revealed why these men are considered among the elite of special operators. With their primary and secondary extraction points compromised, they were forced to implement the Omega Protocol, reaching an emergency extraction point nearly 15 miles from their position with less than 3 hours before their exfiltration aircraft would depart. What they accomplished next defies belief. Moving at extraordinary speed across difficult terrain, they covered this distance in just under 2 hours and 40 minutes, arriving at the extraction point with mere minutes to spare. The helicopter pilot later reported that both men showed no signs of the extreme physical exertion they had just endured, maintaining perfect tactical composure as they boarded the aircraft under enemy fire. The aftermath of this operation had far-reaching consequences that few people outside military circles fully understand. When our main offensive launched the following morning, enemy commanders were completely blindsided by their non-functional electronic warfare systems. What should have been a coordinated defense collapsed into chaos as their units received contradictory orders and false positioning data. Military analysts later estimated that the actions of Jason and Mike reduced our potential casualties by over 70%, saving thousands of lives in those critical first hours. The chemical weapons intelligence they gathered led to the rapid development of countermeasures that protected our forces from what could have been a devastating attack. Something remarkable happened when Jason and Mike returned to base. Rather than seeking recognition, both men immediately began working with intelligence officers to document every detail of the enemy facility. The technical data they memorized during the operation provided our forces with unprecedented insight into enemy capabilities and intentions. What's truly astonishing is that they had accomplished far more than their original mission parameters. Beyond neutralizing the immediate threat, they had compromised the enemy's entire electronic warfare strategy for the region, forcing them to abandon multiple planned operations that would have targeted civilian infrastructure. The ripple effects of their actions would continue to save lives for months to come. The personal cost of this mission remains largely unknown to the public. What few people realize is that Mike sustained a severe injury during the final extraction, a fragment wound that narrowly missed his femoral artery. Despite losing a significant amount of blood, he refused medical evacuation until the operation was complete, fearing that an emergency medical response might compromise their position. Jason, meanwhile, learned upon return that his father had suffered a serious heart attack during his absence. These personal sacrifices rarely appear in official reports, yet they represent the hidden cost that operators and their families bear in service to their country. Both men declined the opportunity for extended leave, insisting on continuing their operational duties. You won't believe how this operation changed our entire approach to counter-electronic warfare. The techniques pioneered by Jason and Mike during this mission have been incorporated into training programs across special operations communities. Their innovative method of exploiting electronic reset vulnerabilities has become standard procedure, saving countless lives in subsequent operations. Military technology experts were particularly impressed by how they reprogrammed enemy systems rather than simply destroying them, a sophisticated approach that yielded far greater strategic advantage. What's truly revolutionary is how they demonstrated that small, highly specialized teams can be more effective against certain threats than conventional force deployment. The most profound impact of their mission wasn't tactical, but humanitarian. The intelligence they gathered about the chemical weapons program led directly to international intervention that prevented these weapons from being deployed against civilian populations. Thousands of innocent lives were saved by this single operation, yet due to the classified nature of their actions, Jason and Mike received no public recognition. When asked later about the lack of acknowledgement, Jason reportedly said something that captures the essence of these extraordinary individuals. "Recognition isn't why we do this. We do this so families we'll never meet can sleep safely in their beds, never knowing how close they came to danger." This selfless perspective exemplifies why these operators represent the very best of our military tradition. What you've just discovered about this remarkable operation should transform your understanding of modern warfare. The extraordinary courage, technical brilliance, and moral resolve demonstrated by Jason and Mike represent the highest standard of service. Have you ever wondered how many similar operations happen every day, protecting us from threats we never even become aware of? These invisible guardians operate in the shadows so we can live in the light, making sacrifices most of us cannot comprehend. Isn't it time we recognize the profound impact these specialized operators have on our collective security? The lessons from this operation extend far beyond military applications. Think about how Jason and Mike's innovative problem-solving under extreme pressure could inspire your approach to challenges in your own life. When faced with seemingly impossible obstacles, could you adapt with the same flexibility and resourcefulness? Could you maintain focus on the mission even when the path becomes unexpectedly dangerous? These principles of excellence, adaptability, and unwavering commitment to purpose can transform how you approach your personal and professional challenges. This story should serve as a powerful reminder of what humans can accomplish when properly trained, motivated, and led. Is there an area in your life where you've been accepting limitations that could be overcome with more innovative thinking? Have you been playing it safe when a calculated risk might lead to extraordinary results? The next time you face a situation that seems impossible, remember how two individuals changed the course of an entire military campaign through courage, expertise, and determination. What could you accomplish if you approached your challenges with the same mindset? The world needs more people willing to step up when the stakes are highest. Will you be someone who makes excuses or someone who makes a difference? The choice is yours, but I hope this remarkable story has ignited something within you, a recognition that extraordinary accomplishments often begin with a simple decision to accept difficult challenges that others avoid. Remember, it's not the size of the team that determines success, but the quality of their preparation, the depth of their commitment, and the strength of their character. I invite you to join our community of like-minded individuals dedicated to excellence and service. Subscribe to our channel and activate notifications so you never miss our future reports on remarkable operations and the extraordinary individuals behind them. Your engagement helps us bring these inspiring stories to a wider audience, ensuring these hidden heroes receive the recognition they deserve. What elite operations would you like to learn about in our next video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback directly shapes our future content.